Okay, so I had this idea when the Boring Company launched and they wanted to make their their highway tunnels for cars and automotive transportation around Los Angeles. I guess Elon was getting tired of sitting in traffic, and I totally understand what he feels because I've been driving in Los Angeles traffic since 1994. So I didn't think the idea was really a great idea at first. I still don't know if it's a great idea for cars. It's an interesting concept because having multiple levels of tunnels could solve a transportation problem. It's cool that he made the tunnel boring machine that makes tunnels a little faster than I think how fast they can make tunnels these days with regular tunneling machines. But I had a different idea. At the same time, I was thinking of things called solar bikeways, solar covered bikeways. So basically, bikeways that bisect Los Angeles and Southern California, so people can go from point A to point B in the shortest possible distance, and then they're covered by solar panels, so they're generating power, and then they're giving the bikers shelter from sun and possibly rain. But that's not really feasible, right? There's a lot of issues with trying to make above ground pathways bisect cities without, like, the idea was they'd be on big posts or pylons and above ground and, like, maybe 20 to 40 feet high, and they would cross over neighborhoods. It's not really practical. You're going to be going through people's backyards. It'd be kind of weird. You would never break ground on something like this. But then, I don't know, one day I was like, wait a minute. What if you could just use the boring machine to make bike paths under the city? Then you could hit those perfect bisecting points. So, for instance, you could go from Santa Monica to downtown LA, or from downtown LA to Los Angeles International Airport, or downtown LA to Disneyland, because that's something that does bother me, is that public transportation in the LA and LA metro area doesn't really go far enough. Basically, Orange County and Los Angeles County are one megapolis. They're just fused together, and there's no subway or train. Well, there is a train that goes to Orange County, but the LA Metro doesn't go anywhere near Orange County. So there's millions of people not being served by the LA Metro. Anyway, and then one of my friends brought up a point the other day. It took him 1.5 hours to go 2 miles in traffic. So on a bike, let's say you want to go from Santa Monica to downtown LA. It's 14 miles one way. So if you can go 20 miles an hour, this is what we're going to assume, like you're on an electric bike. That's 0.7 hours or 42 minutes. The normal drive from Santa Monica to downtown LA, with it's normal, it always tends to have a little bit of traffic somewhere along the route. It's about a half hour, right? So 30 minutes. 30 minutes versus 42 ain't bad, right? Like, if you can hop on your bike and do it, you might just do that. It's 11 miles from LAX to downtown LA in a straight line. That's a 0.55 hour bike ride. Not bad. It's 25 miles to Disneyland from downtown LA, so it's about an hour and change on an electric bike. So you can imagine these underground tunnels where you can jet around Southern California, fairly quickly, assuming there's nothing in your way, and you can go, 20 miles an hour on your e-bike, scooter, or whatever, or even on your push pedal bike. And these are the example trips I have here are kind of longish trips. I mean, a lot of people are going to take shorter trips, so it might make a lot more sense for shorter trips around town. So let's get into the advantages and disadvantages of this idea. Number one is these are direct travel paths. So yeah, the advantage here is there can be direct pathways to important points around the city. So normal biking, scooter times cut way down since you don't have to, A, have to wait at lights, and B, you can take shorter distances. Advantage number two is it's a safety advantage. So safer than biking or traveling the streets with car traffic. When you get hit by a car, there's a greater chance of death or serious bodily injury. 3, these could reduce carbon dioxide, dirty emissions, and traffic accidents. So if people adopted this form of transportation, it could reduce greenhouse gases, emissions, pollutions, etc. This is a big one for me. Number 4 is reduce costs for travelers. Car operations comes with very large costs: gasoline, insurance, maintenance, buying new cars, interest payments because of financing. I actually have a whole article about why buying a car is like kind of the stupidest thing you could ever do. And then there's these other costs, not to mention, costs from auto injury, the therapy, medical bills, the prescription drugs that you might have to take, higher insurance costs because you got in an accident. So driving is very expensive. If we went to more of like a biking form of transportation, you could reduce costs for everybody. Number 5, useful infrastructure for future generations. I think investing in this type of infrastructure, if it's designed well, it has like this great thing. It gets paid for in the past and it's around forever, and future generations can always use this infrastructure. If you don't have a car, if you don't have a lot of money to have a car, short on income, whatever, health, maybe it's just the way things are done in the future, this system's in place for everyone. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And I almost wish that we built more pedestrian and bike infrastructure early on before we went and made roads. I thought that, in retrospect, would have been a way smarter way to design cities. Advantage number 6, health. So even motorized bikes and scooters are healthier than sitting in a car. The act of balancing alone requires muscle movement and reduces being sedentary. Human power travel is even healthier. Number 7, travelers are automatically protected from the elements. So travelers are protected from rain, wind, and sun. Reduces the chance of skin cancer or accidents related to weather conditions. Again, being in tunnels, biking in tunnels. Advantage number 8, could improve the economy of the city. Some people in certain economic situations may have access to new employment activities. Even delivery jobs may be easier. May bring people to new parts of town and increase local foot traffic. Perhaps new businesses can service travelers mid-route. Food, drink, repair services. Okay, so let's get into the disadvantages. The math problem itself. So I actually sat down one day and tried to make my own map of bisecting tunnels throughout Los Angeles. I spent hours on it, actually. And it's an interesting math problem. Because as you expand it out, what routes are really considered important? How many tunnels do you end up building? Do you never stop building tunnels? You just keep expanding? Would navigation become confusing at some point? Like, oh my God, I just biked 30 miles in the wrong direction. So that's an interesting problem, actually. It's kind of a fun thing to think about, is like how you would design such things. Because remember, you can have multiple levels of tunnels bisecting the city. And then, how do you go from one tunnel to another tunnel? How do you know which tunnel to take? And, what's the navigation inside, the navigation signs in the tunnel going to look like? Will there be apps that can help you get around? Will there be signal down there? Interesting things to think about. Disadvantage number 2, safety and danger issues. So there could be crashes and pileups. I lived next to a bike path near the beach when I was a kid, and I would see people run into each other, and it's a wreck when people hit each other on the bike path. They get hurt. I'm certain people die riding bikes on bike paths and hitting each other full speed in just weird accidents. And there are pileups. Pileups can happen. I mean, everyone's seen Tour de France, right? Like, there's pileups in bike races. So it doesn't mean it's perfectly safe. I mean, if no one's using it, it's probably like pretty fine. But if it gets congested, and then if people end up using motorized bikes and scooters, that danger kind of increases, right? You have higher speeds, more force, more impact. And then the size of the tunnels, they're not very big, so there isn't much room for error in these tunnels. Perhaps that could be changed. Maybe they can make a bigger diameter. Maybe they can bore 2 tunnels at a time, so you have one going one way and one going the other way. That'd be kind of interesting. You could have a criminal element down there. There could be, locations for ambushes and robberies, so something to think about. Number 3 disadvantage. Okay, so with any construction project, you're going to have a carbon footprint from construction, and there's going to be a lot of cement. A lot of cement means a lot of carbon dioxide. So I don't know, but it's one of those things. Once it's built, it's done. Maybe it's worth putting that carbon out there, capturing it later to get it finished. I don't really think of it as a huge disadvantage, but it is something you have to you should always account for, and someone should document that if they build it, like how much carbon was put out because of this project. Disadvantage number 4, there could totally be tunnel traffic. So if this became very popular, I mean, we could end up in a world where car ownership is just too expensive for the average American, like seriously too expensive, and then everyone's on bikes. These tunnels could be super jam-packed because at the time of design, perhaps people didn't think about like, whoa, like everyone's going to be riding these tunnels at once. So yeah, so maybe keep that in mind if anyone does this. But then again, you can always make new tunnels above or below to empty out more of the traffic flow. Okay, so I just like this idea because it's an interesting, I think it's a better use for the boring company tunnel idea. I think bike infrastructure is smarter infrastructure than car infrastructure. My biggest beef with cars in general, even if they're electric, is there's a huge carbon footprint to build a car, and there always will be. Unless we get to this like total amazing world where all power comes from renewable, and even manufacturing cars has 0 carbon footprint, which I can't really imagine happening. So I also noticed that cars are kind of like it's a lot of junk. Like in my neighborhood, there's so many cars, and it's like, whoa, when you think about it, it's like this is just junk everywhere. Everyone parking their cars. I try to make people go, imagine if those were all rats and not cars. That's still a lot of rats in your neighborhood running around. You'd be freaked out and gross. So just remember, always take a step back and go, look at all these cars. Imagine if they were all rats, right? So anyway, yeah, I don't know. Bike infrastructure, I think, is better. It's healthier. I think it can be just as fast as driving. Like living in Los Angeles, you spend so much time in traffic. Sometimes sometimes you're actually sitting in traffic and someone blasts by you on a bicycle and you're like, wow, I could be getting faster. I can be getting somewhere faster on a bike right now than what I'm doing in the car. So anyway, please leave some comments. Feel free to add advantages and disadvantages. So I'm not 100% sold on this idea. I just thought it'd be a cool futuristic concept for a place like Southern California.